Hey everyone, it's Nick Lucas from Influence Faculty, and I have with me today a very special guest, one of the nicest blokes you could meet, and that is AJ Roberts. How are you going, AJ?
Good. Yourself?
Very well. So, again, I'd like to help people know, orient people where you are. So, you're in San Diego right now, is that right?
I am, yeah. Beautiful San Diego. It's home base for me, so with all the traveling I do, it's always nice to come back to the beach.
Yeah, well, I can relate to that. I'm based in Sydney, and have you been out here before to Sydney?
No, I've never been to Australia, so it's on my places to visit list.
Well,
So I hope to make it out there.
you have my official invitation. You come down on here, and I'll show you all around. So, look, besides being a nice guy, which is a great way to introduce you, you're so much more than that. And I just wondered if you could give people a bit of a background, you know, around two things. One, your sporting career, your fitness career, and then also two, giving people an insight into this other world you've been in, which is the digital marketing side of things. So, just what's the brief background of you and how you've got to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're kind of synonymous with one another. And so I'll tell the story, and I'll try to make it quick. I don't want to drag on with the backstory. But long story short, I grew up in England and played. I was a basketball player, and if anyone has been to England, basketball is not really the biggest sport over there, but it does have a professional league and things like that. So most of our players, and growing up, the older players, they would come over to America and with the hopes of obviously getting a college scholarship or something like that, and then maybe end up in the NBA. And so I wanted to follow in those footsteps. I had played basketball, had been selected for the England squad, and so I thought it would be a good thing to come over here and give it a shot. So I ended up coming over in high school, and was in a really small town, and the majority of athletes in that town were three sport athletes. So I ended up playing football, basketball, and doing track and field, and really fell in love with the weightlifting, which was how we train for sports. And so went to college and basically was going to try to walk on and play football at a D1 school, and ended up not being able to get through NCAA clearinghouse for paperwork issues. Long story short, I had the right paperwork to be in the country. I had the paperwork to get in and out, but I didn't have the paperwork to stay here. And so although I was in college, I had to come home, and I ended up not being able to play. And we went through some coaching changes, and by the time I was eligible, I had begun powerlifting, and just to fulfill the competitive side of myself. Fast forward 10 years, and a lot of moving around. I ended up training at the legendary Westside Barbell, which is renowned as one of the strongest gyms in the world. And Louis Simmons, who's the head coach there, is known as one of the top strength and conditioning coaches. And I was there for 4 years, and while I was there, I broke the all-time total record in the 308-pound weight class. I'm not sure what that is in kilos. I think it's about 128 or something like that, maybe more.
I won't
Yeah,
try and work it out in my head live.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's wrong, but anyway, I was a big boy. I weighed, walked around at 320 pounds, and after achieving all of that, I just really said enough is enough. But during that time, with the demands of the sport, to supplement my income, because powerlifting is really a sub niche of a sport, and it's not really a big sport anywhere. No one really is, even though I was a professional. I mean, the sponsorship money and things like that wasn't really enough even for like a part-time job. So to subsidize the income, I started getting into internet marketing. And really it was, at first, I was working with a company, a fitness consulting group, and during our time together, we accumulated 12 different businesses from end user to business, with consulting for personal trainers and products for weight loss and strength and conditioning and things like that. And so my role in that company was the marketing director, and basically operated as a CMO, and that's when I got into internet marketing and learned about that world. So about the same time, I kind of decided to retire from powerlifting and get my health back. Like I said, I was a really large man, 320 pounds, which even though I was a big muscular guy, a lot of the truth is weight is weight, and so my health wasn't the best, and I was having some issues, and so I wanted to lose weight. At the same time, I decided to step away from working with the company I was working with and kind of venture out as an entrepreneur on my own into that marketing world. And so I began a new journey. I took up the sport of CrossFit, we had worked with CrossFit, ran powerlifting seminars for the CrossFit community, and I really fell in love with that community. So I started competing in CrossFit and, working in the internet marketing industry along with some of the top internet marketers. Fortunate enough to work with Yannick Silver and help him run his underground online seminar. And we're going into the 10th year, and the third year I've been helping him this year, 2014. Would be the third year I've been involved in, and for him it's his 10th year, so lucky to do that. I worked along with Andy Jenkins while he was out shooting his next movie. As most people know, Andy Jenkins, he's a movie guy and worked on the Blair Witch among other movies, and so he was out shooting his movie. I ran his company for 8 months or so until he was back full time, and then I've done a lot of work with Kevin Nations as well, a close friend of mine, and as we're together in his mastermind there. So I was fortunate enough to work with those guys. And then CrossFit, I got my health back, lost 75 pounds. So, a good chunk of weight there I dropped. And, that really kind of brings us in a roundabout way to today. How we met, both the passion for business and a passion for health and fitness as well.
Look, and what I'd like to do, I'm trying to keep up with that story, because that story, first of all, you don't get to really tell us the emotional things that happened throughout that whole journey and what you had to overcome yourself. And really, when you analyze that story, it is a series of really quite significant accomplishments that are easy to roll off the tongue. And I know, having spent quite a bit of time with you, how humble you are around these things. But, if we go right back to what influence faculty is about here, which is all about helping people maximize their ability to influence. And if we look at you in that context and we say, okay, you're in the UK, you decide to do a sport that's not like a national sport, that's basketball. Somehow or other, you end up actually being able to play at a high level, and you change countries in order to do this. And then you end up in powerlifting. A lot of people do weights, but you end up in powerlifting, and then, if I'm right, you actually held a title for the strongest man in the world in that field at a certain point of time, right? So, there's that. And then you decide to do internet marketing. There's a lot of people involved in marketing, but there's only a few who get to work with the best. And somehow or other, you position yourself to create that opportunity to work with some of the best in the world. And I now know that you're doing the same in CrossFit. So I guess the question that I have, and that I know people are going to have on their minds as well, is what's the consistent thread? What is it about you, do you think, that has enabled you to reach that level of success and begin to mix with those types of people at virtually every step along the way, from the time you were a teenager right through to now? What is it about you, do you think? What do you put it down to?
I've analyzed this question quite a bit because, for my own answers as well, to try to put, I guess, a framework around the success in instance, because, like you said, I rattled off the successes. There's a lot of failures along the way. And really what I really honestly think it boils down to is number one, I have a belief that anything is possible at all. But that belief comes with the understanding that anything is possible as long as you're willing to do whatever it takes. And so if we look at each phase of the journey, for instance, for me, my goal was to be a professional basketball player as a child. And so at 16, I made it possible for me to come to America. I did a foreign exchange, ended up in high school, made the starting basketball team, played these other sports as well. But I actually wanted to leave at 14, but my parents made me finish school over there before I came over for high school, because we graduated at 16, and then we go on to 2 years of college, and then a 4-year university, and that's the way our system works. So, I came to high school over here for the 2 years, and it was only because my senior year I wasn't able to play basketball that I really got more into the weightlifting stuff. And then obviously in college, when I wasn't able to walk on, I chased that dream a little bit harder and kind of shifted. But the thing that I look back and I realize is, if I had not decided to basically at 16 years old to pack up and leave England and come to America, being the NBA was over here, that's the ultimate. If you're a professional basketball player, the NBA is the ultimate goal. my thought process was never, what if I failed? What if this doesn't happen? It was just simply, I need to be where I need to be to make this goal happen, knowing that you have to go to college in the U.S. It's kind of the way the system is to obviously be picked. That was what it was. When I began powerlifting, I was at the University of Idaho, and I started to look for other powerlifters to train with, because I understood that you're only as good as the team around you. And I kind of took that from basketball and carried it over. So you're only good as your team around you. So I started looking for other powerlifters. And there happened to be a world record holder that lived an hour and a half away from me in Spokane, Washington. And found out that there was a guy from Washington State, which was 15 minutes from me, that would drive up twice a week. And so that's what I did for the 4 years I was in college. I drove up twice a week to train with this world record holder, Brent Meixell. And so I basically, that's 3 hours in the car, there and back, plus the training time. It was, another two to 3 hours. So 5 or 6 hours on a Wednesday and a Saturday morning. So I sacrificed in college, a lot to be able to do that, in terms of, basically a lot of people in college are out partying and drinking, and it's Friday nights, to get out there. To me, I was in bed early Friday night so I could get up Saturday and go, leaving Wednesday meant I had to arrange my class schedule so I was done in time. I had to, get a bus. I had to do this to be able to go up. And so it was never a case of, when I walked in and Brent asked me what I wanted to do, I told him I want to be like you. I want to break a world record. And he just said, okay, well, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and do this, 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 and this. And I just did it. And I never saw anything as, to hold me back. It was just a choice. Like, I can either do this and be successful or not do it and live with the circumstances. And so over that journey, it was 10 years or so, there was a lot of sacrifices. I moved to Kentucky to take a job at a health club right out of college, because I knew it put me closer to West Side. And it was 4 hours away. So once a week I would drive to West Side, 4 hours there, 4 hours back. And would train with Lou, and eventually Lou said, if you want to be a world record holder, you have to move here. So that's what I did. I left the health club. I worked there for 11 months, and I went in to run the personal training department. In 11 months, I moved from the personal training manager. I had 60 odd clients underneath me to running the entire health club. But when he said, if you want to be the world record holder, you have to move, that's what I did. I just moved, and so in my mind, I've always done, okay, whatever you want to do, you just decide on it, and then you do whatever it takes to get there, and you find other people who've already achieved it. So when I was at Westside, and I tell this story quite a bit actually about the world record for people to understand, is to break the all-time total world record, it's a combination of 3 lifts, the squat, the bench, and deadlift. And I realized that I didn't have to be the strongest in the squat, I didn't have to be the strongest in the bench press, I didn't have to be the strongest in the deadlift, but I had to be the guy who put the biggest numbers of all 3 together. And so I found someone who was stronger than me in the gym and the squat, found someone who was stronger than me in the bench press, who was stronger than me in the deadlift, and I learned from those people. And I ended up putting that biggest total together. So when I decided that I wanted to business-wise, wanted to go from the fitness field into the internet marketing field, I kind of looked at who were the top guys in that field. And then it was the case of, how do I get around those guys? And I quickly realized that the easiest way to get around people in the internet marketing field is to give them money and either attend their events or their masterminds, or go to the events and seminars that they're speaking at, and be cool, hang out with them at the bar and things like that, and build a relationship with them. Work on being their friend first versus trying to get something out of them. Either learn from them and then get results. And so with these different guys, I would help them first before I ever try to get anything more out of the relationship, because I had this understanding, and I had lucky enough spoken to other people who would know them. I'd have a friend from the fitness industry that maybe had been in someone's mastermind, and they were pretty close to them, so I could see that. And so I realized that's how you get close to these people, and that's what I did. And so it was one of those things, and to work with Andy, once I retired, Andy wanted me to come out to San Diego. He lives in La Jolla here, so that I could be with the business while I was running it. And so that's what I did. And so to me, really, what it is in every instance when I've decided to do something, I've understood that there was sacrifices that are going to have to be made, and I didn't hesitate to make those decisions. And I think all too often, people ask for opportunities. They ask for the way to either in our field, a lot of the times it's freedom from having to work all the time. It's to make their own thing, to make their own decisions and stuff like that, not to work for other people. But often they're given these opportunities and they turn away from it for either something bigger or for the next one, or they don't take action on what the opportunities that arise. And in as far as I can look back, I've always just done whatever I thought I had to do to get to where I wanted to go. And I think that's really the simplest code that it could be in terms of framework. Was I never stopped believing that I could achieve what I wanted to achieve, regardless of the failures I had and the setbacks. And I had injuries, I had relationship issues, all these different things went on. But it was I knew that eventually I would get to that end result that I wanted. And it came to realize that the path isn't a straight line; it's a zigzag. But if you keep trucking forward, you'll get to where you want to go. And that set me up nicely in the marketing industry, in the business world, to understand that here I am. Where do I want to go? Okay, I need to follow this path. Find someone who's already done it. Look at what they do. I have my own story along the way, success and failure, people that have already been successful, and go from there. And that's really what I've done in my whole career, regardless of whether it's been in the sports world or if it's been in the business world. And I think that really is what makes me who I am. And it's interesting because I meet a lot of people who ask me, powerlifters especially, who ask me, how do you achieve that? And I decided to achieve it. And I'll talk to them and I'll quickly say, like, who do you train with? And they say, well, I train on my own. The closest gym is like 40 minutes away. And I'm like, I was driving an hour and a half in college, to do that. So 40 minutes, you're a grown man with a job, 40 minutes should be nothing. But they're not willing to make the sacrifices. Same thing with the business. In the business world, I'll see people say they want to get to a certain income level, but they're not willing to invest the money it takes to learn how to get to that income level, And I honestly believe that the reason you're not where you want to be is usually lack of education or lack of commitment. And those two things really is what separates me in my mind. I believe is a big key to my success.
Well, I mean, the three things that have really stuck out to me right through your story there is, one, your belief in yourself. Two, the fact that you then back yourself and you actually go and do something. You move countries, etc. You drive to wherever you got to get to make it happen. And third, that you go immediately to the best there is and decide to learn from them and model what the best is doing. And I mean, because that's the summary of what you're doing. And then there's tactics in there too about how you actually get to meet those people. I mean, in some industries, you don't need to pay money to get to hang around with the best. In other industries, you do. Either way, whatever it takes to get to hang out with the best people is something that you've clearly done there. So if you were to look back at those three things, your belief in yourself, your commitment, and then being around the people who have done what you would like to achieve. How important is that third one, being around the people who have done what you'd like to achieve, being around the best? How important has that been to your success?
For me, it's that old rule. They say you have to have 10,000 hours to become an expert in something. And I just think that's a load of BS. What I believe is if you're around people who have more than 10,000 hours, you kind of leapfrog the rest, And so to me, it's like, if you want to see what your future is, just look at the 5 people you hang around with. And I think John Wooden said that originally. And I honestly believe that, because you pick up their habits and you get to see. And what I realized with a lot of these people, both when I was powerlifting and now really in the business world and with the CrossFit community, I'm lucky and fortunate enough to work with some of the top athletes and get to meet a lot of the top people in CrossFit who are running CrossFit. And what you quickly realize is these are just normal people. They don't have magic powers or special skills, things that no one else can do. They're just normal people. And the difference between them and someone else is just that belief in themselves and the commitment to it. And I think just being around that, changes your mindset, and you realize how, I don't want to say easy, because easy is not the right word, but simple is probably the better word. It is, but it does take that commitment. And so for me, being around the right people, it's both a significant mind shift in terms of what is achievable. You see guys doing something, and then you see how simple they are, what their process is, and you break it down and say, oh, that's not what I thought. So it changes your beliefs on something. And the same thing goes, with how you model and things like that. And the thing is, I've seen people get there eventually without that circle of influence and the friends, and the associates, but it takes them a lot longer, and they go through a lot of they have a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures that if they were around the right people, and so it's not that you can't do it without that team. I guess I call it a team, obviously from a sports background, but it's not that you can't get there. I just think it takes a lot longer, and I'm one of those people that says, we only have so long here, so why not make the most of it? And if I can figure out a way to kind of leapfrog, then I'm going to do that. And so far, I haven't seen anyone who has applied that who doesn't make huge shifts. And I kind of go back to sports a lot, but if you look at the 4-minute mile, no one had run a 4-minute mile, and then the 4-minute mile gets broken. And now if you don't run a 4-minute mile, you're not really considered a good runner, for competitive running. And it's the same thing with anything, right? If you have a belief that you can only make so much a year, that's probably because the people you're around you only make so much a year. Maybe they make a little bit more, but when you start to get around people who make significantly more than you, you quickly realize, oh, okay, I just have to shift my mindset on this and approach it in this way, and it's a formula, and I feel like everything is able to be broken down into a formula. And it's when you look at it, it's a very straightforward formula. It might not be easy. There might be a lot of moving parts to it. But if I can just duplicate this, I'm going to do. If I can do half as good as them, I'm at least going to do good. And I have yet to meet anyone who does that and isn't successful. So I have a full belief that those people you hang around with are huge influences on you, and I believe you influence them as well.
So one of the things that I teach through influence faculty is there are 3 kind of categories of influence, and I call them me, we, and space, where me is all around your own internal motivation and your skills. We is about the people around us, and you can see that's what you and I have been talking about. There's your internal motivation, and then there's the people around you that you choose to surround yourself with. The third element that we talk about is space, and that is the influence of our environment. And what we know from studies is, for example, someone is going to spend more time snacking on junk food if they're at their office, if the trolley with the junk food is right next to them. If they've got to get up and walk to the end of the corridor, they're not going to eat as much junk food. You're more likely to go to the gym if it's on the way home than if it's out of your way. And that's what I wanted to speak to you about, because you actually kind of almost go against that in a way, because you were prepared to go out of your way to do what it took, even though the physical distance was actually an obstacle.
Right.
You were talking about that guy who wasn't prepared to go more than 40 minutes, yet you were driving hours to get to put yourself in the space. And I guess that speaks to how internally motivated you were to put yourself in that space. Right. And so, but again, that's what I want to tease apart then, because you've got, if we go back to the powerlifting, just as an example for life, right, as that analogy, you've got guys who want to be successful. They're even close to a gym that they could go to, yet even then they don't quite get there. Whereas you're prepared to go put yourself out to drive a couple of hours to do it.
Right.
Why that? If you analyze that back to you in your mind and how you felt about it, why did it happen? What was it? Was it you desperately wanted the success, or you couldn't stand not succeeding? What was it?
This is an interesting question, because I don't really know if I'm not really sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. But I had a firm belief that the end result was was of huge significance. Pretty much, in England, I believe that the only way I would ever get to be a professional basketball player was if I came to America. Powerlifting, I believe, the only way to break a world record was to train at Westside Barbell. And I in the business world, I kind of believe that the only way to get to my goals is to, basically be around those who've already achieved what I want to achieve. So basically be in certain masterminds and things like that is the only way to get to where I want to go. The end result being what I consider the victory, right? And so the for me, it's a delayed gratification thing. The end result has always been greater than the pain or the suffering, whatever I had to go through at that moment in time to achieve it. And so I was always okay in the sacrifice, knowing that I would get to where I believe would be of significance. And in terms of why I was willing to do that, is because I honestly believe there was no other way. And so if I didn't do that, I would fail. And
what was that like for you to consider failing? How did you feel about that? How motivated were you not to fail, as opposed to motivated to succeed?
I would say I was terrified of failing, and what it would mean and what it would look like to others. And I'm a very over-analytical person, and so I'd build these big stories in my head and what it would mean, and I still do to this day with pretty much any goal I set or anything like that. It's like, here's the goal, and here's what it's going to look like when I'm done, and I'll be very specific about that. I write down I have a perfect day, I have a perfect home, and as I climb closer, it's great, but there's this other vision of what I won't have, and bankruptcy and homelessness and things like that. And so to me, like, I'm going to run this way, towards my dream, versus doing the things that could potentially push me this way. And the people I've met and friends I have that don't seem to go all in, I think there is a belief somewhere in them that they can have it without doing the things necessary, that some way they can beat the system or find a shortcut or do something like that. And that's the only real difference. What I find is, for me, is when I feel like this is what I have to do, then literally I'm dialed in on that. And if that means I have to drive a long distance to get somewhere, then that's what it is. If it means I have to invest a significant amount of money to be around a certain person or to learn something that I believe is going to move me in that direction, then that's what I'll do. And I guess in a sense, it's a fear of loss of what I don't have. I don't have it, but it's a fear of loss that if I don't move towards it, that I'll never get there, and I'll end up where I don't want to be. And so, to me, that's what really drives me, is that I guess if you look at it, and if we want to look at what the closest, if you look at heaven and hell, right? If you're religious, like you want to move towards heaven, not towards hell. And I guess in my mind, that's how I build my goals up. My goal is the heaven, and the other direction is the hell. And I want to run as fast away from hell as I can. So, I would say that's probably why, for me, I put myself in the environment instead of waiting for the environment to come to me.
And so along the way, you've obviously, like, you talk about a team. How do you influence other people? How do you get people to get on board with your ideas and what your agenda is? What have you found has been useful and effective?
I am a firm believer in leading by example. And I was always a coach, even as a basketball. When I was playing basketball, as soon as I felt I knew enough, I asked if I could be a help with coaching. And I was running, little kids. I had a under 8 team that I was in charge of. And I was maybe 14 years old at the time. And from there, when I was in high school, I wasn't able to play my senior year due to eligibility issues, like I mentioned earlier. And I helped coach the team. You know, I was one of the guys and yelling, from the sideline and help coach the team. Though in the weightlifting world, we had a class, weightlifting class, and the coach had a bunch of magazines. We followed a program that's called Bigger, Faster, Stronger, and they issued a monthly magazine. And he had 2 or 3 years of these magazines. I took every single one home, learned everything I could about the system, and asked him if I could start programming with him. And so not only was I dedicated as an athlete, I also always wanted to understand my craft. And that's basically what I've done. And so when I got into the marketing world, what happened was, I was basically, when I first started working with the company, all I was doing was helping them with their web stuff. I took in one website class in high school, in college, and just was helping them with their web stuff because they didn't really have a good understanding of how to put things online and stuff like that. And quickly realized, they were talking about guys like Dan Kennedy, who's a big marketer over here and things like that. I said, who are these guys? I need to understand who these guys are and why they're learning from them, and why are we running this campaign in the gym, and why are they telling these personal trainers this stuff. And so it was a case of figuring that out, and then doing that with the companies we had and experimenting. And it was one of those things where, for me, I've influenced my team, no matter who I work with. I think that confidence I have builds confidence in me, and my willingness to learn above and beyond always. When I was an athlete, I went above and beyond to understand my craft. And that's, I guess that's a big reason why I get to teach seminars around the world for CrossFit on the powerlifting, because of that understanding. I get to speak on the largest business stages in the world because of my understanding of marketing, because I don't want to just know what people are doing. I want to know why they're doing it, and I break it down. And I'm getting into neuroscience and NLP and all those things now, because I know why we do it and I know what we do, but I don't know why it works, because I've never directly studied it, and that's how I operate. And so when I get into a topic, the first thing I learned about online was search engine optimization. I had every product, I had every book, I had, I guess I'm obsessive compulsive when it comes to whatever craft it is I want to learn. And once I've learned that, I move on to that next thing. And so for me, that's, that quality, becoming an expert, I guess, in what it is I'm involved with, influences those around me, because then I become a trusted source for them as well. And so my area of expertise might not be the same as theirs, and so they'll lean on me for, marketing, which is what, I've been fortunate enough to help a lot of people with, and I'll lead on them for things like sales or, product delivery, and things that I don't really have not really got into and understood. And so for me, that's why a team is so important. And I always try to surround myself with the qualities with people who have the qualities that I don't necessarily possess myself. I'm a very quick start person. I'm really great with ideas. I'm great with creating strategic plans. I'm actually good at creating implementation plans. But in terms of implementation itself, if it's for other people, I seem to be great. But if it's for myself, I seem to fall off the bandwagon. So I like to surround myself with people who take massive action, for themselves, because then that puts the pressure on me to step up. If not, they'll be asking me, why aren't you doing this? Because they have that. I've always found when you're an expert in something, you almost look at other people and you think to yourself, well, why don't they know this stuff? This stuff is easy. They should know this stuff. So I like to surround myself with people, the things I find hard that they find easy, and I just think everyone then can bounce off of each other. And it's, they say you bring out the better qualities in each of you, and together you're way stronger than if you were on your own.
That's perfect. So if people want to find out more about your story, where can they go? I mean, we've learnt a lot about your background and everything today, but to find out more, where do they go?
Yeah, honestly, the best place is Facebook. Just facebook.com/AJ Roberts is my personal page, and then business page is /AJ Roberts official. And I say that because that really tells the story in photos and things like that. My website's ajroberts.com. But that's really just getting up and going. I've never really, like I said, I've always been building everyone else's businesses. So I'm just now starting to get that up, and we have a blog there, hopefully, and things like that, and tell more of the story. But Facebook is the best place. It's, really my life has been documented there, and it gets documented every day. So that's probably the best place.
Awesome. Okay, well, look, I think as many people would have said to you over your life, you are inspiring. I know that the few times that we've met, just being around you and the energy that you have has definitely helped me with my fitness side of things in particular. I mean, I've got a trainer at the moment, and you and I don't get to speak that often, but I'll be in the car with my wife on the way to the trainer, and I'll mention you because I've seen something of yours on Facebook or whatnot. So it's that really wonderful thing about the influence that we can have on people, those ripple effects, and they can have a long-term impact on people. So thanks for spending the time having a chat, and we'll catch you real soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.